stop slipping, and stop cutting your socks. We have 15 different color options between 3 grip socks and 2 sleeve types. Something for everybody at a price that just makes sense. Available now at puregripsocks.com.
Hello and welcome to the 2024 SR4U Boot Awards, where we'll be celebrating the best, the worst, and the weirdest in football boots that 2024 had to offer. With all the boots winning awards today are ones that I've personally tried and have been readily available to the vast majority throughout the entire year, because we know there have been plenty of really cool limited edition boots, but because they've been so limited, most of us never even got a chance to try them. Also, keeping in mind that all of these picks are based on my own opinions and experiences with these boots, which aren't necessarily right or wrong. You're entitled to your own opinions as well, so feel free to share your picks for all these awards down in the comment section. And really quickly before we get started, if you enjoy part 1 of the SR4U Boot Awards, don't forget to drop a like on the video and make sure you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you don't miss out on part 2 dropping in a couple days, and of course my reviews of all the latest football boots as we head into 2025. Now, this is a pretty big award pretty much every year because speed boots are the most popular category, and there were no shortage of amazing options in 2024, both as new releases as well as carryover models that came out the year before. So I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of different opinions on this award in particular, but I decided to go for the one pair of speed boots that I think made me feel the fastest when I had them on my feet, and that was the Puma Ultra 5 Ultimate, where it's maybe a little bit of an unexpected underdog pick, but I really feel like the Ultra 5 Ultimate is an extremely well-rounded product in terms of delivering on all of those signature speed boot characteristics, where it does pretty well everything exceptionally well at a price point that's actually lower than what you're going to find from pretty much all the, let's call it, more popular options in the category. They're obviously very lighter, believe it or not, than the Ultra 5 Carbon, despite having a plastic sole plate instead of a carbon fiber one. The upper is extremely thin, giving you that barefoot feel. The texturing on the surface of the upper gives you additional grip that really isn't far off the grip knit material you're going to find on the top end Mercurials that retail for significantly more. The overall fit and comfort of the boot is such a gigantic improvement over the previous generation of the Puma Ultra, and overall is above average in terms of comfort for a boot as slim fitting and thin as this one is, and it offers some of the most aggressive traction that I think we've ever seen on a pair of speed boots with its very unique stud layout. As Puma boots usually do, these ones have flown under the radar, and if you're on the market for a pair of top performing speed boots, this is definitely one to consider. Something that's become harder and harder to do as time goes on, especially when it comes to football boots, is to just be different. We've seen so many different designs, so many different technologies, pretty much every colorway that you can think of. It's very rare that something comes out that we can honestly say, wow, I've never seen anything like that before. Which is why quite easily, I think the most unique boot of the year award has to go to the Adidas F50 Plus, where the F50 Plus actually draws inspiration from the world of running shoes, where high stack heights and carbon fiber plates, all for the sake of maximum energy return and faster times, has become a gigantic trend, and Adidas have taken those technologies and worked them into a pair of football boots, where, as you can see, somewhat unusually, you have an elevated forefoot by way of light strike inserts on either side of the forefoot, and then to house that foam material, you actually have a double sole plate construction where there's plastic on top and plastic below, making for one of the most responsive feeling sole plates I think we've ever had on a pair of football boots. The elevated forefoot is supposed to provide that little bit of bounce, although I would say, given how extreme the design looks, it doesn't feel quite as crazy, but certainly the elevated forefoot does a really nice job of putting you on your toes, and you certainly feel very fast in this boot, especially with the spring that you can genuinely feel from this sole plate. Does it actually make you faster or use less energy when running throughout a match? that's really difficult to say. But in terms of a first generation technology, I think they've done something truly unique and special that actually feels good, which is very hard to do these days. With my only real complaint with the F50 Plus being one that I've heard many express, and that's the fact that Adidas chose to release this only as a laceless football boot. Had they added laces to this upper, allowing for a little bit better lockdown and just generally more adjustability, I think there would have been a lot more takers for this new and extremely impressive technology. But then again, this is just generation 1. It makes me very excited for what the future of Adidas speed boots could be. It's very easy to anger the internet comment section these days, where sometimes it only takes one comment to start a train of complaints. Where in the world of football boots, you can play it safe or you can be a little bit controversial, because it tends to be better to have people sharing an opinion, whether it's good or bad, rather than nobody caring at all. We're coming off what I would argue was the most successful Nike Phantom model since they discontinued the Hypervenom Phantom series. Nike didn't need to do a lot to the original GX to make people want a GX2. However, the most controversial football boot of 2024, because what is Nike without controversy, ended up being the Phantom GX2 and the Phantom Luna 2, which is effectively the same football boot with two different names, just that one's a low and one's a mid. Where, like I said, I don't think Nike had to do a lot from the original GX to make people super excited about the GX2. However, before we got GX2, we got the Phantom Luna, which was not a well-received product, and overall, just not very good in general. So what did Nike go and do for the next generation of Phantom? They effectively gave us an evolution of that original GX upper, sticking with Nike grip, not really changing the shape all that much, a little bit of an off-centered lacing system, and generally I think making for an upper that does feel better when compared to the original. But instead of taking the same sole plate and stud pattern that people really liked or coming up with something new, they decided to take the sole plate and stud pattern from the Phantom Luna, which is not one that people liked at all. They also, for whatever reason, created a Phantom GX and a Phantom Luna only to merge them into the same line of football boots just one generation later, which did in turn confuse a lot of people. And I think the general aesthetic of the GX2, maybe not having the best launch colorway overall, and again, trending towards the overall appearance of that not so well liked OG Phantom Luna, just made for a general response that was more controversial than I think this football boot had to be. Where admittedly, now that we're almost a year on from the original launch of the GX2 and Luna 2, public opinion is a lot more favorable. It's just the fact that it had to be so rocky at the start that really makes me question a lot of Nike's decision making. There's no denying that they're great boots, but they definitely could have been a lot better. For the time being, and unfortunately likely for the foreseeable future, the big brands are moving away from natural leather. Where throughout 2024, we didn't get a lot of new leather football boots, but that's not to say that there weren't some great options out there. Where for me in particular, there has still been one that really stands out as truly being above all the rest in the category, and that is the Made in Japan Mizuno Morelia 2. Where there's not much to say about them because they're genuinely very simple, premium kangaroo leather across the entire upper with a central lacing system, a traditional U-throat construction, incredible shaping, arguably the most comfortable football boots on the market, and a more traditionally styled sole plate and stud pattern, but a package overall that is a lot lighter than you might expect. They're a little bit pricey for the Made in Japan variation, but you truly do get what you pay for when it comes to quality, where at the end of the day, if you just want the best of the best in terms of how good a pair of leather football boots can feel, look no further than the Made in Japan Morelia 2. They are undeniably the gold standard. Not everybody has the budget for a $200+ top-end football boot, where I do think that if you are on a budget, you should always consider older colorways or older models of top-end options that have been marked down, because that's typically where the best value is going to be had. But if you just need something right now, you are typically going to end up with a takedown model. Where in 2024, I actually think there were a lot of great takedown model options. However, like most things this year, they were also a lot more expensive than takedown models have been in the past. So factoring in what you pay versus what you actually get, my takedown model of the year, maybe surprising to a lot, is actually the Puma King Pro. Where despite its more traditional styling, on paper this is a football boot that I just typically wouldn't expect to like very much, given that it features a full synthetic K-Better upper in place of what appears to be natural leather, but is in fact full synthetic. It has a very traditional design with a U-throat construction, central lacing system, and standalone tongue, a standard low-cut design, and a sole plate and stud pattern that realistically isn't far off what you're going to find on the more expensive Puma King Ultimate, which is a football boot that costs twice as much that I like a lot less. For $100, the Puma King Pro fits great, is incredibly comfortable, offers a surprisingly great touch on the ball that has a nice amount of padding, is surprisingly leather-like, and for what you pay, just feels like a high-end football boot experience. They definitely aren't the popular choice and certainly don't have the appeal of something like a Vapor 16 Pro or an F50 Pro, but those are football boots that retail for $160 versus the $100 of the King Pro, and when you factor in that these aren't very popular, for under $100 on sale, you'll be hard-pressed to find a better product. Given how much the most popular boots get constantly shoved in our face on social media, it doesn't take much to become underrated. If they're not getting posted about all the time and you're not seeing your favorite players wearing them, it's safe to say they're not going to be on the top of your list when it comes to picking out a new pair of boots. With perhaps the perfect example of a pair of football boots that get next to no marketing attention and in my opinion are extremely underrated, being the Adidas Copa Pure 2 Elite KT, formerly known as the Copa Pure 2 Plus. Same boot, they just changed the name. It's one of those boots that for whatever reason, a lot of people just completely disregard. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that this is not a kangaroo leather upper. Instead, it's a super soft calfskin material. However, this fusion skin design to the upper, which combines really soft, incredibly thin leather at the front, flowing seamlessly into like a padded knit material across the middle of the foot, with the one-piece upper construction sitting on top of what is admittedly not my favorite sole plate and stud pattern, which was originally introduced on the Adidas Nemesis in the torsion frame. As an overall package, this is a football boot that really feels like a leather pair of socks, and as the name would suggest, offers one of the most pure touches on the ball that you can get right now. The price point is unfortunately on the higher side at $250 full retail, but again, given the fact that this is not the most popular Adidas product, you can regularly find them on sale, and for $200 or less, I think if you're looking for a great modern leather football boot experience, this is about as underrated as it gets. Now this is probably one of those awards that you don't want to win, and I'm honestly still a little bit surprised that these football boots weren't way more popular, but sometimes things just don't go the way that you want. Which is why the Nobody Cared award goes to the Puma Ultra 5 Carbon. At launch, this is a football boot that had seemingly tons of hype around it, given that it was the return of carbon fiber sole plates in the world of football boots, something that we haven't really seen since the Mercurial Superfly 4 10 years ago. And as I talked about in my review, this is an implementation of carbon fiber like we've never seen before, which also might be the reason why they weren't the most popular. Where people typically associate carbon fiber with being as light as possible, the goal of this sole plate was actually to be as responsive as possible, where you'll find that this, similar to a running shoe or a sprinter's spike at a high level, is extremely stiff and designed to give you as much responsiveness and energy return through spring back track as possible. This is pretty much the only thing you'll find on the market that comes close to something like an F50 Plus, but it does so in a very different way in that this carbon fiber sole plate is super thin and puts you much lower to the ground than the stacked sole plate of that F50 Plus. Pair that up with a super aggressive stud pattern and you end up with a pair of football boots that genuinely do feel like a pair of sprinter spikes. Unfortunately, technology like this does come at a cost where the retail price of the Ultra 5 Carbon is a relatively steep $290. A lot of money for a pair of Puma football boots. People aren't really used to paying that, and that obviously was the case throughout the year where I don't think sales numbers have been that fantastic because the sole plate is so stiff. The boot as a whole isn't quite as comfortable, especially through the heel, as what you'll find from the non-carbon plated Ultra 5 Ultimate, which would actually be my preference of these two football boots. And also, despite the full carbon fiber sole plate, these aren't actually all that light. That's not to say that they're heavy, of course, but when you're talking about all the top-end speed boots currently on the market, these are on the upper end of weight ranges. Where, don't get me wrong, I still think the performance is great, and if you're after something with a low profile, super stiff and responsive feel to the sole plate, you're probably going to love the Ultra 5 Carbon. However, throughout the year, for whatever reason, the vast majority of people just weren't on board with the concept. When it came to picking a winner for the best limited edition football boot release of 2024, I legitimately had to go back and spend about an hour looking at all the different drops that we've had throughout the year, because there were so many that you just inevitably forget some. And again, this is one of those categories where I think everyone's going to have their own very strong personal opinion. And as much as I love so many of the Predator remakes that we got throughout the year, that's not really a new concept that we've seen from Adidas. They've been on this trend for the better part of, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years now. So it's harder for me to get as excited about a Predator Mania remake when it's the 12th time that they're remaking the Predator Mania. Where because there were so many, I have two picks, an honorable mention and a winner that I think the vast majority of you are going to strongly disagree with me on. With my honorable mention being the chameleon purple messy colorway that Adidas used to effectively bring back the Adidas F50. To me, this is a color that is synonymous with Messi, where when I picture him as a player, this is the color of football boots that I imagine on his feet, taken directly from the 2010 World Cup. It has that cool color flip with the accent of the neon green/yellow, the white heel counter. I just think it's one of those colorways that, while fairly simple at the end of the day, they just absolutely nailed. I'd argue that it was the perfect choice to relaunch the F50. With my pick for the best limited edition release of 2024 being the Adidas Copa Mundial Special FC, which I understand is a very strange pick, and I'm not sure that I can really explain my reasoning all that well here, other than that this is the pair that just stuck in my head after seeing the entire year of limited releases. I'm obviously a big fan of the classic Copa Mundial, and this doesn't stray too far from the original recipe in that it's a black upper with white stripes. But little details like the red Adidas Originals logo on the back of the heel, the unique tongue held down by the elastic strap in black, I just think looks so cool. The red detailing on the lace holes, the white laces, the brown sole plate with the red studs, the collaboration with Jurgen Klopp I think is a really neat thing as well. This for me is just such a unique pair of football boots that I think if you were looking to stand out to people that would only know how cool these football boots were unless they really knew about football boots, I think that's for me what makes this such a unique and special release. They're obviously not going to be for everybody, but for me, they're the ones that still stand out the most.